Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to discuss sports romances, and if you have watched any of my other videos, you would know that romance is the genre that I read the most. And having said that, I have read through a lot of different tropes under this genre. One of them being sports romances. I have yet to find the perfect sports romance, but what I have noticed is that a lot of sports romances have that type of cover, if you know what I mean. If you don't, ab shots. So I have made it my mission in life to find sports romances that don't have ab shots on the cover, not only because I don't want to be judged while reading a book, those people who would happen to spot the cover. That's not at all the reason, but because I just don't think it adds anything to that. No offense to everyone who has that type of cover. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it, but I would just prefer sports romances that don't have that type of cover. Just because it's just my personal preference. Let's just talk about it. I didn't call this video a recommendations type video because I am just going to lay out what I think, and this is my personal opinion on these books. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I haven't found the perfect sports romance, and I didn't necessarily like all these books, but I will discuss them with you and tell you what I think, just to let you know that there are sports romances with not that type of cover. Let's begin. The revelations that came out at the last 10% of the book had me thinking, like, at this point, this is the least you can do. I felt like the author did well with her, and I felt like she deserved better. The conversations. Who are you talking about? You? Me? Yes, you. Me? Yes, you. Me? For like 3 pages. I have my notes, actually. So if I am glancing down, that means I'm reading through the bullet points that I created. The first book that I have for us today is Moonshot by Alessandra Torre, and it was published in 2016. Now, this book was very angsty. This book had a lot of chapters that were like 2 pages each, and it was exciting. A little bit too exciting. Instead of spacing out the highlights in this book, it actually tried to go for a cliffhanger for after every chapter, or like at the end of every chapter. It tried to go for a cliffhanger instead of spacing out the exciting points in the book. I felt like I was being tased, to be honest, because it was just so much and so compressed into like one chapter would have a lot of things going on. And the exciting bits honestly felt like they were a little bit too close together to feel valid. Spoilers, but there were some problematic parts in this book, particularly like Chase storming off because Tai lost her V card to someone else when they were not even together. I just found it so annoying, and although I know that she should have been upfront about it, I just hate the way Chase's character went about it. And it was like he had this thing like, I thought our love was pure because of this and that, and it was so freaking dumb. And then he punched a guy immediately after. Like, what the hell? Punching a guy is the real sign of intelligence, isn't it? I just found it so hypocritical because Chase wasn't exactly celibate. I know that this book was written in 2016, and I would account for that. Like, it was a different time, but it was still problematic for me. It didn't say this exactly, but it almost felt like equating purity with, like, losing your V card or something. I don't believe that at all. I hate that he held it over her head like that. Also, if I was in Ty's shoes and a guy immediately said, I loved you, all hurt and betrayed like that. While he was actually sniffing snow off of some random's back, I would punch him in the throat. Chase's character wanted to be forgiven for doing chemicals, promiscuity, bumping uglies with a teammate's wife, but God forbid Ty go for the home run all of one time. A positive for this book is that I like the baseball jargon. I like how prominently it was featured in this book. I like all the baseball talk and how it was highlighted more than it was just like an accessory. It was really essential to the story, but I think it took it too far. In addition to being a sports romance, it also had these themes: cheating, accidental pregnancy, miscarriage, serial killer, cheating again, the main loving two guys, living the life of the rich and famous, a giant time skip. Like, it was a lot. After Ty's character puked once and then immediately jumped to I'm pregnant, and then the giant time skip afterwards, like 4 years later, I was shitting myself and I was so mad I almost DNF'd it so hard. Another thing that I liked about the book, but then it took it too far, is that I liked how the characters regarded each other with some type of reverence. But after a while, they again took it too far because everyone was a legend by like halfway through the book. Like Chase, Ty, Frank, Toby, Ty's dad, even the dog, Titan. I get it. Yankees, walking with lions, toasting with the greats. I get it. There's a certain layer of drama in how the author phrases things. There's a wistfulness to it, a sort of waxing philosophical aspect to it. And that's neither good nor bad. I just wanted to point it out. The ending of this book was awfully convenient, but after all that tasing, I was honestly just glad for it to be over. Maybe you like that almost soap opera type of thing. Sometimes I like that type of drama, like the soap opera-ish drama. One of the authors that I've read that I found to be like that is Abby Glines. And a lot of readers may not agree with the themes that she does, but I found it entertaining, and maybe Moonshot could be that for you. So much drama that you just like it. But me personally, I was not a fan. Moving on. Our next book is Kulti. Bet you saw that one coming. I can't imagine any sports romance lover who has not read Kulti. I love this cover. Mariana Zapata aced it with this cover. It has to be one of my favorite covers. It's so simple, and the title, I'm a sucker for foreign names in characters, especially names that, like that type of name where you can use it as the person's sole name, even though, of course, his full name is Rainier Kulti, but he can just be referred to as Kulti. I love that. But unfortunately, that's where the love ends for this book for me. I know. It was so long. It was so dragging, for me at least. A lot of people like slow burn romances, and sometimes I like them. I don't hate all of Zapata's books. This is her style, her writing style, her technique. She's a slow burn type of author. Some of her books I do actually appreciate, but this was just not it for me. Kulti, stiff as a board. The didn't say anything until like 30% of the book. And the things that would come out of his mouth, geez, I would go ape on his ass. He was kind of rude and cruel and not my kind of guy at all. At 70% of the book, nothing major has happened. And yes, again, slow burn romance. But at 70%, I would expect something to have happened by then at least, or at least like the 50, 65%. You're really pushing it at 70 and nothing of note has happened. A lot of the word count actually was taken up by Sal creating this monologue in her head, which I like a good thought process as much as the next person, but the monologues were freaking long. Sal had to legit drag the words out of Kulti's mouth at every point. he was so demanding and had the emotional intelligence of a child, in my opinion. I felt like the character was dealing with a child with no sense of responsibility, except it was a 40-year-old man. Pardon me at this point, I'm really digging on Koti right now, but he was such a damn hypocrite. When he would say mean things to Sal, he would be like, it's okay because it's just him. But when other people do it to Sal, he would be like, why are you letting them belittle you? It was insane to me. One thing that I liked about this book is the ending. I thought the ending was sweet. It was nice, but everything that led up to it, it was flat. The revelations that came out at the last 10% of the book had me thinking, like, at this point, this is the least you can do. The least you can do for me after all that I've been through with this book. Another point of mine is that some scenes in this book were a bit repetitive. And I know that considering everything else that I've said, this is the most like basic comment that I have. And I do have some points that I think would have helped this book. One of them being a Koti POV. Since he was such a secretive, stoic character, I think that seeing into his thought process would have helped readers see where he's coming from, basically. And a rundown or a discussion or a part of it where it discusses his history and his family, I think would have helped too. At the end of my notes, I literally wrote, "Thank you, Jesus, there wasn't an ab shot on the cover." I told you I like this cover. On to the next. Okay, our next book is A Favor for a Favor, Helena Hunting, and this was published in 2020. This book was good in a standard kind of way. The relationship between Bishop and Stevie was sweet, and I thought it was nice, but I think there was an issue with the plot. For the entirety of the book, it ran a little bit too smoothly. The conflict was almost non-existent because one of the main themes of the book, a forbidden relationship, didn't even hold enough tension to maximize that theme. Like, the conflict of it was easily resolved to me, and yeah, it was a bit too smooth sailing in that respect. It became a little bit sappy towards the end as well. A lot of lengthy talks towards the end, and I thought that was lengthy. As a sports romance, it wasn't that great because the sports aspect, the hockey aspect of it, could have been taken out and it wouldn't have mattered. I could barely taste the sports flavor of it, and the discussions, the sports talk, wasn't as prevalent as it was in Moonshot and Koti. Bishop was a brooding type of character, and the I hate everyone but you character, or like characteristic, for him was done well, actually. And he didn't feel too mean, which is a plus. Overall, I really enjoyed reading this book. Granted, there were some flaws, but it was a good, entertaining light read. To the next one. Our next book is Catching Jordan by Miranda Keneally, and it was published in 2011. Now, I am going to be honest, I read this earlier last year, so I can barely actually remember, but what I do is I type or I take notes of what I think about any book that I read right after reading them. I'm looking through my notes now, a year later, and yeah, my impression of the book was that it was pretty average, and it has a surprise Prince Charming thing going on. That was one of the main things that stood out to me because it veered from the obvious Prince Charming candidate. There were two guys, and then it didn't go the obvious way. And I don't know what to think about that, but just a heads up, it's not gonna go for the Prince Charming that you would assume. Jordan was a good female character. She was a good lead. I am a sucker for a female athlete who can hold her own against dumb boys. Actually, after reading this book, it started a phase for me where I would try to find books with female athletes because I don't know, I'm a sucker for that type of like empowerment. I enjoyed reading it. I can't remember much, but I did enjoy it. And yeah, to the next one. Our next book is The Chase by Elle Kennedy, and this was published in 2018. I believe that I've already discussed this in one of my previous videos, but to reiterate, I thought that the plot was simple, but the writing was great. It didn't really attempt to like give us any gimmicks or whatnot. It was just a simple story, and it was written well, and I appreciated that. Sometimes I can appreciate a simple story. But on the other side, as a sports romance, the sport aspect wasn't that like highlighted. It wasn't that prominent in the story. But the characters were likable, even though there were a lot of characters, because this is part of a bigger series. I think apart from the Briar University series that this book is under, I think there's a spin-off series as well related to the other characters mentioned in this book. So there are a lot of them. But I believe that the author did a good job in differentiating personalities and whatnot. I wasn't confused, like distinguishing each and every character, which I thought was nice. And it's a good book. You should give it a read. Our next book is Homecoming King by Penny Reid, and I believe my last reading related video was a review of Homecoming King by Penny Reid. So I'm not going to say too much about it, but it was a good book and I enjoyed reading it. It was actually, apart from being a sports romance, it was also kind of a holiday book, so it was a little light on conflict. But I love the characters. The characters, 10 out of 10. The plot points and the progression, I would give it like a 6.5. But overall, it was an entertaining read. And I particularly loved that each chapter came with this little quote before each chapter from different books. And it was somehow related to what was happening in that part of the story, and I don't know, I liked it. Not a lot of books can pull that off. Sometimes it can get annoying, including like excerpts from other books in a particular book, because it can bog down the story, especially if you don't pick the right quotes to include. Homecoming King did that part right, and yeah, I was entertained, and I don't know, some leftover holiday feels made me happy. Our next book is Girl at Heart by Kelly Oram, and this was published 2019. So this book is for a younger demographic, I believe. As far as I can remember, I read this also in the earlier part of last year. I remember it being like for a younger audience, like young adult or teens. I believe there are no explicit intimate scenes in this book. If I remember correctly, do not quote me on that. I actually have read other books by Kelly Oram, and generally her books are pretty clean romances. I don't like to refer like romances as clean, and I don't think we're in any position to label things as clean and dirty, but no explicit intimate scenes. Again, this is one of those books where it's a female athlete that runs with like a guy team, and I don't know, I'm a sucker for that. I'm a sucker for a girl who runs with slays barbarians or something. And I liked it. It was enjoyable, simple. The writing was heartwarming, and yeah, it was a light read. Very light. Our next book is The Cheat Sheet, Sarah Adams. It was published in 2021, and I believe that I already mentioned this actually in one of my previous videos. But it's one of my favorite books actually from 2021, and I really enjoyed reading this because it was so funny. And I'm not gonna discuss it too intensely because I've already discussed it before. This is one of those books where the guy's POV is really done well. I could read Nathan and his friends' like scenarios forever because I just loved how Nathan's character was made and how the scenes were elaborated in his point of view. I think this is the perfect example of a romance that is entertaining without doing the nasty. I don't know, I really enjoyed it. I enjoy the camaraderie, and although yes, the sport aspect again wasn't as prevalent, it focused more on the camaraderie. Apart from the romance, it is focused more on the camaraderie between Nathan and his teammates because they were actually friends. I read it again recently, actually, and there were parts where Bree was almost a part of their team, a part of their like little family, and I don't know. I like how they relied on each other a lot throughout the book. It was a good read. If I could recommend, like highly recommend any one of these books, I would recommend this. So read it. Our next book is hands down Mariana Zapata again. See, I told you. I read Koti first and I did not give up on her. After that, I still read hands down, and actually I even read The Wall of Winnipeg and Me as well. Hands down and The Wall of Winnipeg I liked more than I liked Koti, actually. And yeah, this was published in 2020, and this is Zach's story. This is gonna go against what I have just said, but in my notes it literally says, if you want to practice patience to the point of excruciating pain, read Mariana Zapata, because every book is lengthy, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 E's in there. Maybe it's just not for me, but I like these characters more than I liked Koti. I liked Zach better and Bianca better. Bianca's character was a bit talky. Again, it's slow burn romance, and you gotta fill those pages somehow. And of course, a lot of internal monologues are done in Bianca's point of view. It was just that paragraphs would be taken up, and she would harp on about the same stuff over and over again. Like, I love him, he left me, his muscles are endless, blah, blah, blah. Like, over and over again. And it filled most of the pages that way, and after a while it can get kind of repetitive. I felt that Zach and Bianca were better off as friends, because in the first 80% of the book, there was no intense reciprocation from Zach exactly. Like, there was no intense longing. I have a lot of friends who are that type. Like, some friends are just touchy. And that's how it came off to me, like buddies who are a bit like into like hugs and stuff. And it didn't really seem like they were each other's romantic interest. And yeah, that's how it came off to me. The first 80%, that Zach wasn't really reciprocating, that he was just friendly, that he had no feelings intense enough to act on for the first 80% of the book, which is a lot of the book. So to get it. An aspect of this book that I liked is that it dove into the content creation as a profession, because it's very 2020, and I like that it was hashed out and discussed as a legitimate profession, and all the intricacies and all the struggles and the uncertainties that come with it are hashed out and discussed in this book. Sports-wise, it wasn't that much. It was still sporty. I mean, it's Mariana Zapata. Most of her books are sports romances. But yeah, there were a lot of other things going on, and a lot of aspects that were more in the forefront than the sport. The conversations. Who are you talking about? You? Me? Yes, you. Me? Yes, you. me? For like 3 pages. And then surprise at the 90% mark. I'm in love with you and all that shit. And then an absolute sprint to the finish line. Because that's how legends are born. Overall better than Kotsi. And characters-wise, I like them better. Story-wise, it was still a bit disjointed. And that's saying something because it had a lot of room to play with because it's a slow burn romance. Now, let's go on to we're almost there. Next one, last one. Promise. Okay, our last book is The Game Can't Love You Back. It was released in 2018. This is going to be actually more of a rant about the events that occurred, but writing-wise, it was good. Sports-wise, it was good. But I'm just going to rant because I loved the protagonist so much. Eve was such a good character. She would never let anybody see her sweat, even after all the things that they made her go through. I loved that strength in the character and how she never let anyone see her panic. Such a good trait for a female character running with the boys. Eve was like pure talent. She was confident. She was unfazed. I don't think the hero, I don't actually think Jamie deserved Eve. Because Jamie struck me as a very insecure guy. I felt like he was unnecessarily aggressive to her to the point where I would almost question his intentions towards her every time he was sweet because he was just that unnecessarily aggressive to her at every point, at every chance that he got. So I had serious questions about how his character was made. And yeah, I don't think he deserved her. He was so disgruntled. He was so mean. And I just didn't like it for Eve. And for such a strong female lead, like it was kind of a letdown to give us that sorry excuse for a guy as the hero. I expect more for a winner. And our girl is a winner. And nothing less than a perfect gentleman is for her. Oh yeah, and there were times when I would question like Jamie because there were some chapters where his dialogue would lead you to believe that he was kind of using his difficult home life to excuse his behavior, his like an excuse for being an and I don't think that's valid at all. I just thought it was so immature of him to like act like that towards Eve just because she was legitimate competition. He was just butthurt about like finally finding his match in the sport. My notes go full on rant at this point. I'm like, they were attracted to each other for sure, but I was all for Eve putting up boundaries because I didn't buy Jamie's supposed genuine feelings. She is mad. I read this a while back and I wrote these notes and I forgot about them completely. I am personally offended by this character. As far as I'm concerned, if the guy doesn't publicly claim the girl first, the girl isn't obligated to put herself out there and declare feelings because he got butthurt about it. See, exactly what I said. And the ending was kind of abrupt. Yes, I still agree with that. And like I said, Jamie's character was a bit douchey to me until the end. I felt like since the ending was brought on so abruptly, he kind of lost his chance to prove his worth. Like, after declaring your feelings, yes, they were attracted to each other for sure, but attraction can only take you so far. And I felt like Jamie was not equipped to like have genuine feelings almost. And yeah, I felt like it was damaging to the integrity of the heroine that we have, because I loved Eve so much. I cannot even I loved her character. Her character was such a good set of combined characteristics, and I felt like the author did well with her. And I felt like she deserved better. He's not the one, keep looking. So yeah, those are the 10 sports romances that have absolutely no ab shots on the cover. And you can rest assured, you can try and read these without getting judged by your elders. You may agree or not agree with my opinions about these books, and it's okay. It's okay. We can have different opinions about these things. Okay. See you next time. Bye.